liver transplant was in my future, but things happened, and they happened really quickly. I spent 16 days in the hospital at Greenville. After going through a battery of tests, they finally figured out some stuff, but they were also wrong with some stuff. And so I decided I was going to need better medical attention. And I have, as you can see, an enormous family over here. So I thought the best idea was to head up north, to be closer to family, and then also to receive some of the best medical attention. And I had my mind focused on Yale the whole time. So within a week of being discharged from the hospital, my Aunt Karen and cousin Rocco flew down to South Carolina, where I was living at the time, picked me up, and we drove back up to Connecticut. Within 1 week of that, I had my first liver evaluation at Yale, but this was just supposed to be a consultation, but actually Dr. Schiltzky is the one who evaluated me, and he said my condition looked worrisome. That was his words. And I was admitted right on the spot. Within 1 week after that, I had my liver biopsy, and unfortunately I was suffering internal bleeding. And I lost my pulse 4 times in a matter of 2 hours. At this point, I didn't have 2 or 3 months to live. I had 24 to 48 hours to live. And if I didn't get a transplant within that time, then wasn't looking too good. The average wait time for a liver transplant is 361 days. I didn't have that amount of time. Somehow, somebody's looking over me, because on May 3rd, 2012, I had my miraculous liver transplant. Waking up, I was out of it, because as you know, the symptoms, you kind of lose it when it gets really bad. And I was out of it, and I woke up, and my mom was there, and she wasn't there when I remember last. And she's like, "You got a liver transplant." And I was like, "No, I didn't." I was like, "You're lying." She's like, "You got a liver transplant." And she's like, I was like, "No." And I made the doctors come in and tell me, and I was like, "Oh, I got a liver transplant." And things were good for a couple of days, but then complications ensued. I started seeing flashing lights, green, yellow, and red, green, yellow, and red. I was hearing voices and talking to them, and I had the worst imaginable headache. It was terrible. It felt like my skull was going to come out of my head. Something was wrong, and I checked out. I was out. Well, doctors found out I had acquired this extremely rare and extremely fatal fungal infection in my brain called invasive aspergillus. You probably never heard of it, because I sure never did. But invasive aspergillus has almost 100% mortality rate in immunosuppressed patients. Almost 100%. That is crazy. I asked my infectious disease doctor, and he said, "You can't even count the fingers on your hand. That's the amount of people who have ever survived from this." And so obviously the odds were completely against me, and my only option was to have brain surgery. So not even a couple weeks after my liver transplant, I had my first brain surgery. And it went really well, but they weren't able to get all of the infection out. Well, you can't live with fungus in your brain. So put me on some medicine for about 10 days, but the infection was still there. So I had to have a second brain surgery. So within a matter of 5 weeks, I had a life-saving liver transplant and 2 life-saving brain surgeries. If you can imagine what my body felt like at this point, it felt like I got hit by a speeding Greyhound bus. Couldn't move. But I was finally discharged from the hospital. I know you were trying to get out in 5 or 6 days, but I spent 52 days there. And I was finally discharged on June 14th. But it wasn't over yet. A tiny, tiny bit of that infection still remained. So for about 6 to 7 hours a night for 7 weeks straight. For 7 days a week, 7 weeks straight, I was hooked up to this IV machine of amphotericin B, which has the nickname Ampho-Terrible. It's horrible. But finally, on August 3rd of last year, I was taken off the IV, and now I'm just currently still taking 12 pills a day of the antifungal for my brain, but things are doing great. And defying all the odds, they said I could come out deaf, blind, paralyzed, or worst of all, dead. I'm not deaf, although sometimes I might wish I was deaf with my crazy loud family, but I'm not deaf. I'm not paralyzed, as you can see. I move around great. I've actually run in a couple 5Ks the past few months, so not too bad. Under 34 minutes, so not too bad. I'm not blind. I lost my peripheral vision to the right in both of my eyes, so I can't see pretty much this half of the crowd. But, you know, I'm not allowed to drive a car, but that hasn't stopped me from driving a golf ball. And I've actually I shot 73 a couple weeks ago from the white tees at Candlewood, so I'm getting there. And then, most importantly, though, I'm not dead. So, yeah, I feel the best I've ever felt in my entire life, the most alive I've ever felt. And don't get me wrong, it didn't come easy. It took a lot of hard work, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, but I'm here today, and I feel like I'm living proof of a miracle. And, you know, that miracle wouldn't be possible without a lot of people and a lot of things, including my wonderful friends, some who've made the trip out here to be here today. I have the most amazing family in the world, who's right there, and is wearing all the bright green. And, you know, my medical team at Yale, I mean, that is just, they're like the best in the world. So, Dr. Schildsky and Dr. Rodriguez, two of my favorites are here, and I love them to death. I owe them my life. And then also my donor, and I don't know who that is, but definitely want to thank them for everything, and their family, who I know that's hard to deal with, but if their family saw, a lot of good has come out of it. So that's why, you know, everyone, if you're not a donor, my grandma just told me today she's turning 80 tomorrow, and she just got on the donor list. So it's never too late. And you can do it online. You don't have to go to the DMV. So you can go online. You don't have to worry about those long lines. Just go online and do it. And yeah. I'll leave you with this. It's the rest of that quote from Rocky. He said, "It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. And that's how winning is done." Just say Mo.
Thank you, Mo. That was so inspiring. I'm tearing up a little bit.